Barbara Nissman, and I am speaking to you from my music studio here in beautiful Greenbrier County, West Virginia. How I wish we were together in the concert hall, and hopefully that will happen soon. But in the meantime, I thought it would be fun to invite you and share with you some more Chopin. Now, Chopin was the most popular composer for the piano, and he was so prolific in his short lifespan of only 39 years. And I've chosen for you this evening two major compositions of his that I wanted to share with you. And Chopin wrote only for the piano because this was his comfort zone. This was the instrument where he could express his deepest feelings, and most people found Chopin to be a very elusive character. You know, he was charming, sophisticated, and elegant, but not many people knew him. He was private. But it was in his music that he revealed his soul. And the Ballade in G minor is one of those pieces where it's a story waiting to be told. And now Ballade is the equivalent of a ballad in English. It's the French pronunciation. And actually it is like a ballad, except Chopin doesn't give us any words. And that's the glory of music. We each bring to our listening our own memories, our own thoughts, our own associations, experience, and we provide our own words. They're not given to us like in a country music song. But Chopin wrote this in 1831. It was the year before he arrived in Paris. And Robert Schumann wrote him a letter saying, "This is your most beautiful composition. This is the best composition in my opinion." And eventually Chopin did answer Schumann by saying, "Yes, this composition is the one that is dearest to my heart." And let me walk you through it. And it starts very boldly. In fact, the opening note gives us the impression, hey, you better listen to this. And then Chopin goes on. Now, we have, of course, no idea what key we're in because Chopin was quite adventurous with his harmonic progressions. We don't know we're in G minor yet. And this is the second phrase. And then he gives us a third phrase, resting on that E flat, and finally it resolves to the dominant of G minor. Finally we are in the key. And here's the opening theme. And this also makes me think of a West Virginia ballad because I hear that accompaniment as being played by the guitar or the lute or the mandolin. And what's interesting is Chopin will bring back this theme as a refrain, as a chorus. So you will hear it, of course, in a different key, right before the middle section begins. You'll also hear it right before the virtuosic coda begins. So he comes back to that refrain. And then he will give us a second theme. And he introduces the second theme with a horn call. Actually, a hunting horn. That's why I have this West Virginia connection in my mind. So let me play it for you, and I think you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. About Chopin, I call him a composer of variants. He wasn't a motivic composer the way Beethoven was. You know, Beethoven could take 2 notes and make a whole symphony out of it, or 3 notes. Chopin usually takes the melody and varies it. He presents it in a different key, different dynamics, different character, and he does that with his second theme. because in the middle section he presents it in a different key, different dynamics, and a different dramatic gesture. And so on. And you will hear that. And then he returns to the refrain and gives us, to close, this very virtuoso coda. And pianists spend a lot of time in their practice studios practicing this coda because it presents a lot of challenges. So let me play for you the first ballade, and you will hear, I think, Chopin's soul speaking in this piece. You know, I really think through his music he was able to reveal himself, and there are many layers to his complex character. So here's his favorite ballade, Schumann's favorite ballade, and mine too. the anguish. I mean, actually, the gamut of emotion. Chopin gives us everything. In fact, I was just thinking of a quote I read recently from the country music singer Hank Williams, and it was very touching because he says, everybody brings to me their anger, their sorrow, their shame, their anguish, their melancholy, and they want me to write a song about it so they don't have to deal with it. And he says, and I do. And in a way, music functions that way, you know. It's much better than being on a psychiatrist's couch because everything is there as long as we dig and try and uncover all the layers. And let me play for you another dramatic piece of Chopin. It's one of his 4 scherzos. Now, you might have heard the term scherzo because Beethoven, Haydn, Mozart had scherzo movements in their sonatas, in their symphonies, and usually it functioned as a musical joke, a diversion, a lighter movement, say, than the heavier opening movements. And usually in 3-part form and in 3/4 tempo. Now, the only thing that Chopin's scherzos share with that is probably the tempo marking of 3/4, because it's very dramatic and in a way very dark in character. And actually, I've chosen for you the darkest one, the C sharp minor, because that happens to be my favorite. But there is a story that goes along with this scherzo. I mentioned Chopin's friend George Sand, who was really a well-known writer and also famous and a bit infamous because she scandalized Paris with her behavior. She smoked cigars in public. She wore pantsuits way before they were in style and acceptable. And of course, the liaison with Chopin raised a few eyebrows. But it was a winter, and a very cold winter in Paris, that George Sand made the decision that they should vacation in Mallorca, spend the winter in Mallorca, where sunshine was always there and warmer weather. They would leave the cold of Paris, and of course, you know what happened. Happened to be the coldest winter in Mallorca and the rainiest winter. And when they arrived, they could not find accommodations because the Mallorquin people were quite conservative and they were a bit scandalized by the 2 of them. So finally they found an abandoned monastery in Valdemosa overlooking Palma de Mallorca. And actually I visited that place. I even played on Chopin's piano where he composed this scherzo many years ago when I was playing in Mallorca. And I think the scherzo, the C sharp minor, reflects the anguish and his misery of that time. It was not the happiest time for him, but the piece is really glorious. And let me share a bit with you. Again, in the introduction, he really makes those progressions so bold, we have no idea where we are headed. Okay, B major, no. Maybe D. Okay, we're in D. And finally, he gives us C sharp minor. Very virtuosic theme. Very bold, right in your face, you know, very direct. And the middle section is what is so beautiful because he writes a chorale theme, a very poignant theme, and then he enhances it with filigree coming from the treble. Let me show you what I mean. Chopin was noted for revolutionizing the color of the piano and his pedaling techniques, his fingering techniques, in addition to those bold harmonic progressions. So this sound effect is really poignant, and you will hear this in the music. So, and of course, once again, Chopin loved writing these virtuoso codas to make pianists' lives very difficult. He gives us a wonderful virtuoso coda at the end, but it's a very dramatic piece, and again, there's so many layers to uncover in this piece. It's definitely not just a superficial, elegant Chopin here. His soul is really speaking. little jokes there. It's a very dramatic, very anguished, tragic statement. But always with hope. I always feel that chorale section is his ray of hope, his faith, whatever. And you know what? Every time I play this, because I think of this virtuosity, I think, oh my goodness, I would have loved to have heard Liszt play this piece, and I'm sure he did. You know, Liszt and Chopin had this love-hate relationship. Chopin could not help but admire the way Liszt could play his music, although sometimes he resented the fact that Liszt would add some of his frills to Chopin's writing. And Liszt had this enormous respect for Chopin. I mean, he adored the man. He adored his genius and originality. And you know what? Chopin could not abide Liszt's music. And they were so different because there was Liszt, very comfortable playing for thousands of people. I mean, he played at La Scala, imagine. And of course, he used an Erard piano because that was the piano that gave him the most sound. Whereas Chopin was more comfortable playing in the salons of the wealthy aristocracy, those beautiful, elegant living rooms. And Chopin preferred the Pleyel piano because it was the more subtle instrument, you know, more mellow instrument. He could phrase and do those beautiful melodies so well. But in a concert hall, that was not his comfort zone because his small sound could not be heard. But I would imagine that when Chopin sat at the piano, you know, on those evenings when he arrived in his carriage, very elegantly dressed, with those white gloves of his, and sat down at the piano to play one of his recent compositions, he probably played one of his waltzes for the aristocracy. And that's what I'd like to end the program with, one of his beautiful waltzes in A-flat. And I guarantee you that Chopin probably played this piece every time differently than he wrote it down. And that's a delightful Chopin waltz, and you can imagine what it must have been like in Paris. And maybe this music did transport us back to 19th century Paris. That would be a nice place to be at the moment, wouldn't it? Just for a brief time, right? But this has been fun sharing Chopin's music with you, and I guarantee there will be other programs because he wrote so many wonderful works for the piano that need to be heard, and I look forward to playing them for you. So in the meantime, be safe, be well, and maybe you should listen to more of Chopin's music or listen to more music. It really does help, doesn't it? So it's been nice visiting with you, and till next time, thank you.